A warm good evening to everyone and a heartfelt welcome to today's discussion, organized by Talking Films Online, also known as TFO. My name is Neha KP and I am your host for today's session. TFO began its journey with Professor Nikhila and Dr. Geeta Vishwanath in June 2020 during the lockdown. Over the years, TFO has metamorphosed from a spontaneous idea into an expanding community of cinephiles encompassing scholars, researchers, students, professors, filmmakers, and anyone passionate about cinema. We are delighted to have sustained this forum thanks to you, our dedicated participants, who gather every Saturday at 9 p.m. as per Indian Standard Time on Zoom to talk about cinema. It has been TFO's practice to invite individuals to select and lead discussions on chosen films, which participants are free to watch at their own time and place. TFO has had the pleasure of hosting eminent filmmakers, professors, scholars, cinematographers, and editors like Aparna Sen, Amol Palekar, Girish Kasaravalli, and Adur Gopalakrishnan. Our journey has also included film festivals such as South Asian, East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, among others. Every June, TFO hosts a smartphone short film making contest for students and organizes a lecture series in university departments to commemorate its anniversary. In September 2024, we organized our first offline event, an international seminar on Indian cinema in the digital era, in collaboration with FCT Baroda. Last year, we also organized our second international conference in hybrid mode, titled Screen to Street, Decoding Cinema in Everyday Life, in collaboration with Banwarilal Balotia College, Asansol, West Bengal. Now, for tonight's discussion, we will focus on the Telugu film Cinema Bandi, directed by Praveen Kandregula. The film has been chosen by Professor Samuel Moses, who will also lead the discussion today. It is my great pleasure to introduce him. Professor K. Samuel Moses Srinivas is an assistant professor of English at the Department of English SFS, Madras Christian College, Chennai. He is an educationist and an eco-critic and has been teaching at Madras Christian College for the past 16 years. He has published and presented a number of papers, both nationally and internationally, on the intersection of eco-criticism, caste studies, and film studies. He is the director of the Thine Eco Film Festival that organizes Biennial Eco Film Festival of Thine, formerly called OSLE India, which is an organization for promoting eco-criticism. On a slightly personal note, he was my professor at MCC and I had the opportunity to truly learn a lot under his guidance. So I'm happy to welcome you, sir, and I now hand over the floor to sir.
Thank you so much, Sneha. I'm really happy that, and I'm really honored that you have invited me to this online session. And also I'm happy that you are part of this excellent no, uh, this thing. So, can we share the PPT that I've sent it to you?
Sir, I hope it's... just a minute, sir. I'll share it immediately.
Oh, sure, no problem. Yeah.
Sir, is it okay? Is the screen visible?
Yeah. Yes. I think it is. So I'll be reading my talk, and I think I hope Sneha will be managing the PPT. So I have titled my talk as Cinema Bandi and the Aesthetics of Little Cinema, uh, Community Camera and Space. Before we turn to Cinema Bandi specifically, I want to spend a moment unpacking the conceptual vocabulary that structures this talk. When we speak of Telugu cinema, we tend to oscillate between two poles, what industry insiders and critics have come to call mass cinema, and what I will argue deserves its own serious critical category, little cinema. To understand what little cinema is and what it refuses, we need first to understand with some precision what mass cinema actually is. And for this, a scholarship of S.V. Srinivas offers us an indispensable starting point. In his book, Megastar Chiranjeevi and Telugu Cinema after N.T. Ramarao, and across a series of essays on popular cinema in South India, Srinivas develops a rigorous account of what mass cinema is and does. For Srinivas, mass cinema is not simply big budget filmmaking, it is a specific social institution, one organized around the figure of the mass hero, a star whose screen persona exceeds a narrative, whose appeal is devotional rather than merely dramatic. The mass hero does not play characters so much as he performs himself, and the audience does not simply watch but participates through fan associations, through rituals of theatrical reception, throwing coins, distributing sweets, garlands on cutouts, and through a mode of collective spectatorship that Srinivas characterizes as devotion and defiance. What Srinivas reveals is that mass cinema is not a style or a genre. It is a structure of feeling in Raymond Williams' sense and an economic and political formation. The mass hero is simultaneously an aesthetic phenomenon and a social one. His celebrity organizes fan labor, generates political capital, and sustains an entire ecosystem of distributors, exhibitors, and allied industries whose survival depends on the spectacle of his stardom. The genre conventions, the action sequences, the item numbers, the melodramatic family resolutions, all of these are not arbitrary choices but structural requirements, the load bearing elements of a system that must deliver a specific emotional and social experience to a specific paying audience. This is why I would gently push back on any account that treats mass cinema's constraints as mere conservatism or creative timidity. Srinivas is careful on this point. The repetition, the formula, the excess, these are not failures of imagination. They are contractual obligations to a community of viewers whose investment in the system is social and even quasi-religious, not merely aesthetic. Mass cinema is, paradoxically, the cinema that is most thoroughly determined by its audience. It cannot afford to surprise them too much. It is against this structural background that the category of little cinema becomes intelligible. And it is important to resist the temptation to read little as synonymous with class cinema or with an art house tradition that positions itself in simple opposition to the popular. Little cinema is not a cinema of refinement or critical distance. It is a cinema of freedom, a freedom that becomes available precisely because it has opted out of the contractual structure Srinivas describes. With no mass hero to service, no fan ecosystem to sustain, no distributor network requiring guaranteed returns on an enormous investment, the little cinema filmmakers released from all of these obligations at once. The defining characteristics of this cinema, first time or non professional actors, modest production budgets, technical craft that is sometimes amateurish but always expressive, and above all, a radical freedom in storytelling, are not limitations to be apologized for. They are the direct consequences of operating outside the mass system, where mass cinema in Srinivas's account is a cinema thoroughly determined by social obligation. Little cinema is a cinema of the undetermined, the cinema in which it is still possible within Telugu filmmaking to not know in advance what a film will be. What I find so compelling about this moment in Telugu cinema is that little cinema, or Chinna cinema, to use the Telugu term, is not an imported critical concept. It is a genuine industrial and cultural tradition with its own lineage. Consider the films that anchor this tradition. Aite, directed by Chandrasekhar Yeleti, it was released in 2003, a landmark heist thriller that demonstrated Telugu audiences' appetite for genre innovation on a shoestring budget. Anand, directed by Shekhar Kamala, 2004, a deeply humanist drama that foregrounded character over spectacle. Care of Kanchirapalam and Balagam, more recent examples that embed their narratives within the rhythms of specific communities, making the community itself the protagonist. Masuda, which demonstrates that little cinema can extend even into genre territory such as horror. This tradition is, I want to insist, as commercially and culturally successful as mass cinema. It is not marginal. It represents a parallel mainstream, one with its own aesthetics and its own modes of circulation. But I want to be precise about what its own modes of circulation actually means in practice, because this is where little cinema must or most sharply distinguishes itself not only from mass cinema, but also from the art house or class cinema with which it is so often confused. Class cinema in the Indian context tends to address a self-selecting audience that already knows it is seeking an alternative to the popular. It circulates through film festivals, urban multiplexes, metropolitan centers, and critical discourse that consecrates it in advance. Little cinema, by contrast, shares its audience with mass cinema. It opens in the same halls, competes for the same Friday screens, and is watched by the same people who will queue the following week for a Prabhas or Allu Arjun blockbuster. What it cannot do is reach that audience through the same publicity infrastructure, with no star cutouts to erect at intersections, no audio launches drawing thousands, no satellite rights sold for sums that generate their own news cycle. Little Little cinema arrives quietly. Its first weekend is typically modest, and then, if the film is good enough, something else happens. The clearest recent illustration of this is Care of Kanchirapalam, which was directed by Venkatesh Maha, 2018, made on a budget of approximately 50 lakhs, featuring over 80 non-professional actors drawn from the Kanchirapalam neighborhood of Visakhapatnam. The film had no star cast, no pre-release promotional events, and no conventional marketing machinery. It opened in a limited number of theaters with negligible first day numbers. What followed confounded every prediction. Word of mouth spread through social media, through critics, through viewers who described the film as an experience that haunted them for days. And footfall grew week on week. Rana Daggubati, who acquired the distribution rights after watching a rough cut at Ramanadu Studios, spent 20 lakhs on post-release promotion. The film grossed approximately 7 crore worldwide, a remarkable return on a 50 lakh production. It was later remade in Tamil, Kannada, and Malayalam. Another movie, I think, directed by Chandrasekhar Ayaleti, 2003, is in many respects the founding document of this mode of reception within the modern Telugu little cinema tradition. It's worth dwelling on what its trajectory actually looked like. Made on a budget of approximately 1.5 crore, a fraction of what a comparable mass cinema production would have required. The film featured no recognizable cast, only a single song, a deliberate formal choice by ALAT, inverting the mandatory multi-song structure of commercial Telugu cinema, and was the debut feature of a director who had previously worked in television, most notably on the cult serial Amrita. There was no audio launch, no promotional circuit, no satellite rights deal announced before the film had been seen. ALAT and his producer Gunnam Gangarajan were working outside the established publicity infrastructure almost entirely by necessity. And yet, what followed was, by any measure, extraordinary. The film completed a 100-day theatrical run, a benchmark of commercial success in the Telugu exhibition system, typically reserved for films built around established stars on the strength of critical acclaim and audience word of mouth alone. It won the national award for best feature film in Telugu that year and was made in Tamil as Nan 2003 and in Malayalam as Wanted. The institutional recognition and the wider commercial infrastructure, the remakes, the awards, the retrospective critical consecration all came after the audience had already decided the film mattered. That sequence is, I want to insist, not incidental. It is structural to how little cinema works. This is what I want to argue, a structurally different relationship between a film and its audience. Mass cinema, as Srinivas shows us, must produce its audience in advance through the devotional labor of fan associations, through the saturation publicity of the pre-release period, through the ritual of the first day first show. Little cinema discovers its audience after the fact. The audience is not mobilized, it assembles itself, drawn by the testimony of people who have already seen the film and feel compelled to share what they saw. This is not merely a marketing distinction, it points to a fundamentally different understanding of what cinema is for and who it belongs to. Now, let us look at Cinema Bandi in this context. Directed by Praveen Kandregula and produced by the celebrated filmmaker duo of Raj and DK. Cinema Bandi, which was released in 2021, is a dark comedy that occupies a singular position within this tradition. It's not merely a film made under the conditions of little cinema. It is a film that reflects quite self-consciously on those very conditions. The film follows a group of villagers who discover an abandoned camera and decide to make a film. In doing so, Cinema Bandi enacts a kind of double movement. It is simultaneously a narrative about filmmaking and a demonstration of the filmmaking philosophy it espouses. To watch Cinema Bandi is to watch a community negotiate for the first time the tools of cinema. I want to focus this talk on two specific formal dimensions of Cinema Bandi, the camera and the space. These are, I will argue, the film's most theoretically productive sites of meaning and the film's most direct challenge to what apparatus theorists have described as a deeply ideological nature of cinematic technology. Jean-Louis Baudry argued that the cinema is never a neutral technology. It is important to be precise here. It is not the camera alone that produces this effect, but the full cinematic apparatus. Uh, he contended that cinema is never an entirely neutral technology. It is crucial to clarify that uh, it is not just the camera that creates this effect, rather the entire cinematic setup, including the camera, projector, darkened theater, and spectatorship conditions, addresses the viewer as a transcendental subject, unified, all-knowing, and seemingly the origin of the gaze rather than its source. The monocular perspective inherent in the camera's lens plays a specific role by naturalizing a Renaissance geometric view of sight that centers all vision on a single sovereign eye. However, this ideological function is only fully enacted by the whole mechanism, what we call dispositive. Jean-Louis Comolli expanded this analysis with a more historical and institutional focus. While Baudry mainly explored the psychological effects of the apparatus, Comolli examined the camera's technical evolution to demonstrate how its design, perspectival norms, and operational norms are embedded within broader contexts of power, labor, and institutional knowledge. Cinema, in this account, functions within and alongside the wider set of apparatus of representation at work in a given society. The camera, in other words, know its place and has known it since its invention. Cinema Bandi opens with a decisive counter proposition. The camera at the center of the film is found abandoned in the back of Veerababu's auto rickshaw. A professional cinema camera, an instrument of institutional filmmaking, now literally ownerless. It does not belong to a studio, a director of photography, or a production house. It belongs initially to no one. And in that vacancy, the community steps in. What follows is one of the film's most quietly radical sequences and one of its most meta-cinematically loaded. Veerababu and Ganapati learn to operate the camera through pure trial and error, pointing it at whatever happens to be in front of them. A woman grinding spices, children running across a courtyard, the unhurried, unremarkable geography of a village afternoon. There is no framing for effect, no calculated shot design, no understanding of the grammar of screen direction or the 180-degree rule. And yet, the images accumulate a strange power, precisely because the camera is encountering this world for the first time, without the mediation of professional habit. But it is worth pausing here to notice what Kandregula is doing with the film's own camera in the same moments, because the relationship between the film and the metafilm is not one of the simple mirroring. It is a relationship of instructive contrast. Cinema Bandi was shot on a red Gemini camera with Zeiss lenses by two professional cinematographers. Apurva Shaligram and Sagar Vaivivi, under a director who, in interviews, explicitly insisted that he did not want to operate the camera himself, precisely because he believed in the division of creative labor. Where Ganapati has no grammar, Kandregula has a fully articulated one. The film oscillates with quiet deliberateness between expansive wide shots that situate characters within the flattened landscape of Kollapalli, the dust roads, the open fields, the unornamented horizon, and intimate close ups that hold a face for just long enough to catch the involuntary flicker of a thought or an emotion. Ganapati, by contrast, stays almost entirely in a fixed, undifferentiated mid-range because that is the only register he knows from wedding photography. Frame the subjects, keep them centered, do not move. The comedy of the metafilm's footage, when we glimpse it, is partly the comedy of this blankness, a single visual register applied indiscriminately to everything. And yet, this is where the film makes its most interesting move. The difference in technical ability does not produce a difference in fundamental orientation. Kandregula has spoken about how his own origin story as a filmmaker precisely mirrors Veerababu's. As a schoolboy in seventh standard, his father bought a digital camera to shoot weddings, and the young Kandregula immediately began pointing it at his cousins, making short films with no knowledge and no plan, driven by the sheer fact of the camera's existence. Cinema Bandi, he has said, is in this sense a very personal film. The professional cinematographer and the auto rickshaw driver who has found a camera occupied at the deepest level the same position, someone for whom the camera opens a world they had not previously been able to enter. And in and in both the film and the metafilm, the filmmakers and the actors are not separated from their community by their creative role. Kandregula's cast are non-professional actors drawn from Gollapalli itself. Veerbabu's cast are his neighbors. The crew that assembles around the camera in each case is not a professional unit imported from outside, but a community that has claimed the camera as its own. This, the genuinely democratic character of the filmmaking on both levels simultaneously, is what I take to be Simapalli's most profound formal argument. That the distance between the naive and the knowing use of the camera is not the distance between community cinema and professional cinema. It is at most a matter of grammar. The impulse is the same. There is, I believe, a further dimension to this meta cinematic design that has not been sufficiently noted. Kandregula holds both the structure of mass cinema and the freedom of little cinema in deliberate, simultaneous tension throughout the film. The metafilm that Veerababu and Ganapati are attempting to make is not some free and spontaneous act of communal expression, at least not at the outset. It is a slavish imitation of mass cinema form. They want a hero, a heroine, a villain, a love story, and an item number, a climax fight. They are, in other words, trying to make exactly the kind of film that the conditions of little cinema are supposed to liberate you from. This is the source of much of the film's comedy, but is also a central structural irony. The people who are least equipped to reproduce the conventions of mass cinema are also the ones most sincerely committed to doing so. Nowhere is this tension more legible or more tender than in the heroine hunt sequence, which occupies a substantial portion of the film's first half. Mass cinema's heroine is, of course, a known quantity, beautiful, compliant, willing to perform for the camera, ideally already partially trained in dance and performance. Veerbabu and Ganapati go looking for this figure in Kollapalli. And what they inevitably find is the village as it actually is. The sequence at the girls' school is the clearest illustration. The girls approached as candidates are genuinely bewildered, not performing shyness for the camera, but actually visibly unsure of what these two men want from them or why being photographed in an auto rickshaw driver's film might be desirable. The registers of mass cinema convention and even and lived reality collide in their faces, producing a comedy that has nothing to do with slapstick or orchestration. The discomfort is real. The gap between the role Veerababu wants filled and the actual young woman of the village who might fill it is not a gap that charm or persuasion can close. It is a structural gap produced by the distance between the fantasy space of mass cinema and the lived space of Kollapalli. The same logic recurs across the film in a series of scenes that function as gentle tests of mass cinema template against village reality. The villain needs to be threatened. The man cast is the role the man cast in the role is too nervous to maintain a menacing expression on cue and breaks into an apologetic smile. The moment Ganapati lowers the camera, the action climax requires a fight. The hero, Maridesh Babu, the barber, has no idea how to throw a filmic punch and flinches before contact. The item number, a mass cinema requirement that Veerababu insists on, despite having no budget, no choreographer, and no willing performer, ends up simply not happening. The dream quietly abandoned without ever being formally cancelled. At each of these moments, the mass cinema template encounters the lived reality of the community and is gently, irrevocably deflated. Yet, Kandregula's camera, the actual film's camera, not Ganapati's, observes all of this with a composed, unhurried gaze that is anything but defeated. The wide shots linger on the landscape. The close-ups hold the characters' faces precisely when they lose control of their characters and become simply themselves. This is the deliberate formal choice at the heart of the cinema band, to use the conventions of mass cinema as a scaffolding that the film's own little cinema aesthetic steadily, patiently dismantles, not through argument, but through the sheer weight of what the camera keeps finding when it points at the village. This connects to the egalitarian claim that Bazin associates with photographic realism, most thoroughly explored in the ontology of photographic image, and another one of his essays, the evolution of the language of cinema, which are there in his book, What is Cinema? That the cinema's true affinity is with unstaged reality. The camera reaches its highest potential when not driven by an author's will, but when it allows viewers to explore a world unaltered by the film. This resonates with Siegfried Kroscher's view that cinema's main goal is to recover the unpredictable details of everyday life. The street scenes, involuntary gestures, fleeting impressions that scripted stories often suppress. Baudry's idea of the full dispositive as an ideological machinery, creating a transcendental subject who confuses their own constructed gaze with sovereign vision is challenged by cinema bundling. It does so simply by returning the camera to hands not conditioned by ideological protocols and then showing the resulting image to the community that owns it. Critically, the viewfinder transforms into a communal object. In a typical scene, several villagers take turns peering through it, not to aim or capture, but just to observe what it shows. This act signifies collective exploration rather than professional control. The camera, both on and off screen, stops functioning as a tool of institutional sight and instead becomes a shared getaway for the community to view itself. Now let us look at the space. The same principle, I believe, underpins the film's connection with space. Henry Lefebvre's framework from the production of space proves particularly insightful here. Lefebvre divides space into conceived space, the planned, abstracted, and institutionally created environment shaped by architects, planners, or designers, and lived space, which is chaotic, inhabited, and shaped by everyday activities. Mass cinema mainly functions within conceived space. Locations are scouted, decorated, cleared of residents, and converted into sets. The village or street shown on screen does not reflect a real space, real place where people live. It is a controlled representation of one. Cinema Bandi was shot in the actual village of Kollapalli in the Kolar district of Karnataka near Andhra Karnataka border. A Telugu speaking community whose dialect carries a distinctive Kannada inflection that the film preserves entirely, treating it not as a comic work, but as an authentic register of the place. The production made no attempt to dress or clear the locations. The roads Veerbabu's auto rickshaw navigates are used by other vehicles. The fields visible in the background are actually being farmed. The poultry farm, where the crew goes to charge the camera battery, is a working farm. The set at every moment remains a place where people live and work. This spatial magic, this spatial logic is mirrored precisely in how the film recruits its cast and sources. Veerababu and Ganapati, the wedding photographer who becomes their cinematographer, find their actors not through auditions but by walking through the village. The barber, Maridesh Babu, becomes the hero. Manga, a village with a vegetable vendor, becomes a heroine and continues selling vegetables between takes, returning to her stall the moment the camera stops rolling. The student is recruited as script supervisor based not on any creative qualification but on class and examination ranking posted on a school notice board. The crane shots that mass cinema would achieve with a hydraulic jib arm are managed here with a bullock cart. The tracking shots are achieved by mounting the camera on Veerababu's auto rickshaw. The cinematographer climbs a coconut tree to capture a panoramic view of the village. Two cast members note with quiet pathos that they will lose their daily wages by spending the day on set. Veerababu's wife lends her best clothes for the heroine's costume. None of this is presented as a makeshift improvisation that falls short of some professional standard. It is simply how things are done in Gollapalli, and the film treats it as entirely adequate. Michel D. Chateau provides a useful framework for interpreting this situation. In the practice of everyday life, he differentiates between institutions strategies which produce and control space from a position of power, creating clearly defined vulnerable areas, and the tactics used by the ordinary individuals who operate within already established spaces, grabbing opportunities as they appear rather than asserting a fixed position. The villagers of Cinema Bandi exemplify tactical agents in this sense. They do not turn Gollapalli into a film set. Instead, they film Gollapalli as it naturally exists, transforming everyday tactics like the barber shop, vegetable market, fields, and school notice board into cinematic material. A notably Dishartian moment occurs in the film when the actress playing the heroine attacked by villains, instinctively fights back, forgetting she is supposed to be a passive Telugu movie heroine waiting for rescue. This act of self defense disrupts the genre's strategic norms. The living space refuses to be fully converted into a conceived space, even within the film within the film. Crucially, the lived reality of Gollapalli does not simply provide texture. It actively reshapes the film within the film that Veerababu and Ganapati are making. What begins as a shameless imitation of Tollywood tropes, including a recreation of the Titanic pose on a cliff, Ganapati's unimaginative favorite from his wedding photography work, gradually absorbs the actual concerns of the village, the chronic water scarcity, the prospect of forced migration to nearby cities, the particular social dynamics of a drought-hit community. The metafilm becomes, almost despite itself, a document of Gollapalli's lived reality. This is, I would argue, the deepest illustration of what I mean by a cinema of shared territory, a filmmaking practice in which neither the camera nor the space is fully colonized by the requirements of the production, and in which the unruly real, the vegetable vendor, who goes back to her stall, the heroine who forgets to be helpless, the drought that will not stay in the background, is not filtered out but absorbed as a very substance of the film. In this, Cinema Bandi shares something with the Italian neo-realist tradition. Think of Rossellini's Rome or De Sica's streets, but locates that impulse within a distinctly Telugu comedic register, one that is warm, communal, and resolutely local. I want to close by drawing attention to what I consider the film's most quietly radical gesture, one that concerns authorship and the origins of narrative itself. Throughout Cinema Bandi, the village community collectively believes that the story for their film was authored by the community's tata, a grandfather figure. He carries the authority of the storyteller. The film sustains this belief until its final revelation. The Tata is, in fact, illiterate. He could not have written the story. The detail is not a plot twist for comic effect alone. It is a statement about the nature of storytelling in the little cinema tradition. Story, the film suggests, does not originate in a solitary author. It emerges from the community, circulates through it, and is authorized by the collective belief. Tata is a figure not of individual creation but of communal myth making. It's something here that resonates deeply with what Walter Benjamin has called a storyteller. It is a say storyteller reflections on the works of Nikolai Lescaut. Benjamin characterizes the storyteller as a craftsman who transmits rather than invents stories. This figure derives authority not from individual talent but from collective experience, with their personality intertwined with the story like traces of a potter's hand cling to a clay bowl. The best storytellers, Benjamin argues, are those whose work has the quality of speech from unnamed multitudes, those who seem to belonging to a larger whole. This resembles the Tata of Cinema Bandi. Benjamin mourns the loss of the storyteller, displaced first by novels and later by the rapid spread of the information of the modern world, which has hindered reflection and oral transmission. As Benjamin writes, this figure is already fading. What Cinema Bandi achieves is not just illustrating the Benjaminian storytelling, but actively reclaiming this mode, asserting against mass entertainment and star driven culture that a community can gather around a story it creates together, where the author is both no one and everyone. The Tata's illiteracy is not a flaw, but a confirmation of this truth. To return to where began, Cinema Bandi is a film about what cinema can be when it is returned to the people, when the camera is no longer controlled, when the space is no longer colonized, and when the story is no longer authored. What remains is something closer to myth than its industry. I believe the little cinema tradition in Telugu film making has always known this. Cinema Bandi simply makes it visible. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hello. Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful
Yeah.
talk. Uh, Now the dice is open for everyone, and I request everyone to come up with your comments or questions if you have any. Uh, the floor is open for all.
May I, Sneha?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Samuel Moses, for that very scholarly presentation. And it was an extremely enjoyable film, hilarious in parts, and
Yes. Yeah.
a complete laugh riot. And what I really liked about the film is it's a very gentle kind of optimism that it seems to celebrate. And there is no, judgment about the ethics of retaining the camera that was found in the auto rickshaw, and except for a small scene in which they feel guilty about
Yeah.
keeping it, and they express a desire to find the owner and to return it. But otherwise, nobody is really concerned about that act of retaining something that was found. On the contrary, it becomes, some kind of a gift that has been bestowed on that community, and everybody gets into the act of making the film. And even within that scheme, there is one community member who, you could call him the figure of the villain in mass cinema, where he's trying to stop this. And then he also is reformed and contributes towards making the film. So, so the whole setup of, they are borrowing tropes from mass cinema and at the same time reinventing it for the purposes of what you rightly called little cinema. And I thought it was also about self-representation, where the community wants to represent itself. So there is some kind of a subaltern agency at work here, because even if the film belongs to a very long tradition of self-reflexive cinema, it is not that very, um, that self-aware meta cinema kind of a thing. Rather, it is about appropriating agency to represent itself. And of
Yeah.
course, all this also needs to be seen in the context of the spread of media technology. So,
Mm.
because all, even if they don't use, they are not familiar with this professional camera, they are all users of mobile phones. And
Yeah.
there is one person who's also using a small digital
Yeah.
camera. And this practice of, prenuptial photo shoots, that is also something that has spread to
Mm.
the rural
Yeah.
communities. So that context also I thought was
Mm.
important, and the film celebrates this kind of what do I, maybe a kind of vernacular creativity. So
Yeah.
these are some of the things that I really enjoyed about the film, and of course it's a complete laugh riot, which
Yeah.
made it such a wonderful experience. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for your
Thank you.
introduction.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And also, as you said, it's a kind of, I believe it's an unabashedly no celebration of cinema audience. I think whether wherever they come from, whether they come from a very rural background or wherever they come from, I think the love for cinema is something which is very unique in Indian context. So that is something which is portrayed in the cinema. In the there is a kind of reverence that you see with the communities. Which you in real, I think you see that in real life too. I mean, a kind of a reverence for cinema. I mean, you might not. I mean, there is obviously a kind of attitude towards other side. Also, kind of look at cinema as vulgar, but at the same time, you also look at cinema in a very reverential tone. So, I mean, that is something think we see this in cinema. And um, that is, I mean, even the director was talking about it, in his interviews, talking about how he would love to watch movies, and uh, that's what he want to represent, kind of how he kind of enjoyed making movie as well as watching movies. Something that you can see that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Are there more questions, more comments?
Yeah. Um, Thank you, Dr. Samuel Moses. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for selecting this film for TFO's watch, and also for your thoroughly scholarly presentation tonight. I think your paper is almost ready for publication. So at TFO, we are very glad, when people come with such ready-made papers which are almost ready to publish, because we would like you to try out your ideas about, films also on this platform.
Sure, sure.
My yeah, so my own sense of this film, I had watched it earlier when it released on Netflix, I think, and without any problems, I watched it again because it is such an interesting film, and there are so many aspects to it, like you pointed out, which has to do with the culture around cinema. So it's a film
Mhm.
that really celebrates the culture around cinema,
Mhm.
in terms of the dreams and aspirations that cinema fosters. And which it has fostered right from the beginning. You know, people traveling long distances to Kodambakam to make
Yeah.
films, from that to now that you have a camera, your life will change. So being an auto rickshaw
Mhm.
driver to being a
Mhm.
filmmaker, and the dreams and aspirations associated with that. Also in terms of cinema culture, in terms of what is representable or how things should be shown. As you rightly pointed out, it's a very conventional film. That is the
Mhm.
film that is being made by these
Mhm.
villagers is a very conventional film, in the sense that it evokes conventional tropes of love, or the villain has to be there, and the dance sequence, and so on. So in that sense, I'm not very sure that it is it comes from a place of wanting to tell our own story. It is more in the sense
Mhm.
of how we can make a film. I mean, how we also can make a film,
Mhm. Yeah.
as a mass film. So
Yeah.
that is what I was thinking, that your category is mass film and little film. So it's I mean, the film itself is a little film, but the film that is being made aspires to be
Mhm.
a mass film. So how how can we make a
Mhm.
mass film? And I thank you very much for unpacking that figure of the old man in the end,
Yeah.
because I had not seen it in any greater significance than like
Mhm.
the last kind of the way in which the rug is pulled from under your feet. So so whose
Yeah. Yeah.
story have you watching, if it is not the old man's? He's a very enigmatic figure. He doesn't speak
Yeah.
much in the film.
Mhm.
So it's a very, very interesting kind of character. Also, though the film that is being made is fairly conventional, the characters who are being drawn into the film, as you rightly pointed out, like for instance, Manga. She's full of spunk. She's not your
Mhm.
typical, heroine who is there to obey, or even the other girl who elopes. So, in some ways, while it is making a film, I think it's also telling us about cinema culture in villages. I mean, so much has been written, spoken, written about in cinema studies about the multiplex audience and so on. So, what
Mhm.
does cinema mean? In these rural hinterlands? There's also, I think, through the central character of the auto driver, a certain celebration of remaining in the village, not migrating to the city. Somehow, this filmmaking is also very closely tied to those values that the
Yeah.
protagonist, I think, also celebrates, I mean, stands for. So in that sense, very happy, to listen to you, and was very happy to watch the film again. Also, I take this opportunity to welcome friends like Alagarasan and Ruta, who have also joined us today. Others mostly here are here every night. But very happy to have you, Alagarasan, on this on Talking Films Online. Yeah, thank you. It's now over to you, Sneha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Do we have any more questions? More comments? The floor is open.
Someone has raised hand.
Yeah.
Someone has raised.
I am unable to see the raised hand, but please do
Can
unmute it.
I
Yes,
can
yes,
I please comment?
yes, sir.
Yeah. Hi, this is Dr.
Hi.
Sangobidani.
Yeah.
I watched this film with a lot of interest, because I feel that a lot of the observations that you make are something that connect with me as a film scholar. And
Mm,
also the thing that struck me the most about this particular film is the aspect of the film within the film. And the fact
yeah.
that while, the film that they are attempting to produce uh, follows the conventions of mass cinema,
Yeah.
but it's the way they present the film in a completely natural manner that
Mm,
really distinguishes it from any kind of
mm,
understanding of the film as a formulaic film you know
yeah.
so that is one of the aspects. Then the other thing that I found very interesting in your presentation is the idea of the film, in the lived space. You know, the
Mm,
that is something that is very unique about this particular film, and in fact, it drew me back to a observation that, in fact, Anurag Kashyap made with regard to Gangs
yeah.
of Wasipur, where he said that
Mm,
some of the scenes where he shot in that particular film,
mm,
he just left the camera, hanging from
mm,
above, and he
mm,
shot some of these scenes, completely naturally, without any
mm.
requirement for permissions and all that. So that was something
Okay.
which really,
Mm,
resonated with me, even with regard to this particular film.
yeah.
And the other thing that I feel that this film really contributed to is the fact that, when we talk about filmmaking, we think that uh, it's mostly for those, who have the requisite skills to make
Mm,
films. But now,
mm,
with the evolution of technology and
mm,
the easy accessibility almost of
mm,
mobile phones, which are highly equipped to help you
mm,
shoot particular images, I feel that the short films or films which are independent made by independent filmmakers are going to play a
mm,
significant role in allowing us to
mm,
continue to have
mm,
films which are going to expose certain aspects which we don't really think
mm,
about when we talk about cinema. So
mm,
thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and allowing us to watch this film.
mm. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Uh, would any other more questions or comments?
Mm,
Thank you, Sam, for that wonderful presentation. This is Alagarthan.
yes.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, nice listening to
Yeah.
your talk. And what the interesting part is that I see a healthy dialogue between the filmmaking and the lore of filmmaking in the movie. Hmm?
Mm, yes, sir.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
the image of filmmaking among the people. Okay, that's what I call
Yeah.
lore. there is a dialogue
Mm.
between the lore about the filmmaking and the actual filmmaking. So I think that
Mm.
makes it very interesting. Uh,
Yes. Yes, sir.
yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The floor is open. Are there more questions or comments?
Hi, sir. Uh, it was extremely
Hi.
nice listening to you talk again, sir. For me, I, in your talk, it was this, the kind of distinction between mass cinema. Recently, we were listening to S.V. Srinivas talking about the blockbusterization of Telugu cinema, and though he mentioned briefly Care of Kancharapalam, I think I didn't because I have not really seen many of these. I think little cinemas in Telugu film. So for me,
Mm.
I think to hear this, to see this kind of distinction, the way it works is interesting. And about the film itself, for me, I liked, I liked, it was very nice to see how this kind of popular, this popular medias like, simply these other mass films or even the Swati magazine that he's the older the Tata supposed to have written for, like how these
Mm.
kind of popular culture symbols, how they are shown in the film. So that was very nice to
Mm.
see. It was very fun to see as well.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
sir.
mean, this little cinema tradition. Thanks, Sam. I think this little cinema tradition is that's what I was trying to tell is that it's there for some time. No, I mean, what I've seen from last 30 years or 2 decades, 3 decades, it is simultaneously. No, or it is part of Telugu film. No, there is always a conflict between Chinna cinema and Pedda cinema. Where for the for the uh, cinema halls. When big cinema comes, when mass cinema comes, people, the children cinema people always try to, kind of protest that they are not getting these, theaters. So there is this conflict that is always there, and the cinema, this kind of tradition with this little cinema tradition is there for a long time. A lot of these directors actually have come from little cinema, as I mentioned before. Shekhar Kamala, or all these directors, have come from little cinema, come from nowhere actually, and did this kind of movies when there was no the kind of democratized equipments that you have right now with the camera, with phone or whatever it is, and they making movies, and as I mentioned before, they were. I mean, technically they might not be very sound, but what we see is their passion, and they are trying to move away from this mass cinema tradition. Though that is something which is Telugu cinema is very well known, and no, it's very interesting to see this, and it's a lot of these aspects of cultural aspects of this of Telugu society is we can see that in the little cinema particular more than actually mass cinema.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Are there any more questions or comments?
Can I come in?
Yes, Ananya. Yes, sir.
Okay. Am I audible and visible properly before I begin?
Yes, Ananya, you are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Samuel, sir. This was a lovely presentation from your side and everything that you contributed into a fruitful and prolific discussion. I was indeed, I'll say, informed. I found your presentation really informative. Provided the new terminology, the jargon that I got to acquaint myself with provided that I'm really a complete stranger to not just Telugu cinema, but also South Indian cinema. My younger life was kind of spent, let's just say, kind of unknowingly with the Hindi cinema. So I grew up watching Hindi cinema and Assamese cinema as well, much less. But South Indian is really new to me. South Indian, Marathi, and simply Telugu, Malayalam. These languages are really new to me. So I'm really truly thankful that you suggested a movie like this. I admit that I haven't watched the movie as of yet, but the presentation acquainted me with a few core issues of the movie. So my general question out of your delivery tonight will be directed more on the concept of language that has been used in the movie. So my question will be, as per you, sir, do you think that there is any particular level of competition that South Indian cinema or Telugu cinema stands up front cinema of the mainstream popular culture that is prevalent in India? So do you think that there is any such competition? Do you think that this is more difficult for languages like Telugu, Malayalam, Tulu, languages like Kannada, more South Indian to find room amidst the popular audience of India?
Okay, so you're asking about the Bollywood, what we call the Bollywood, and with the other regional cinema, right? Whether there is a
Yeah.
competition between yeah. So what we see from last few years, I think, with Rajmouli's movies like Bahubalis and all these movies with Rajmouli, there's a kind of a pan-Indian cinema that's coming up, and which most of these pan-India movies are coming from the south. Whether it is Kannada, no, or Telugu or Tamil. I'm not saying that it's no. I mean, uh, it's kind of it's taken over the Bollywood as such. But definitely there is a kind of a competition that you can see, or there is a kind of leveler that you can see with South Indian cinema, particularly mass cinema, where the movies, the directors, the actors that are coming from this part of the world are taking, definitely kind of giving a great competition for the Bollywood. In a sense, it's also becoming a pan-Indian kind of a movie. Movies. So uh, there was no, if you go back to 10 years, maybe a decade back, or there was no competition. Obviously, Bollywood has a larger audience, whether it is all over India or all over the world. No, but now with this pan-Indian movies that are coming up, the South Indian movies are definitely kind of giving a tough competition. I mean, if you say there a competition as such, but definitely you can see what we consider now as pan-Indian movies are mostly from the South. So, or directors from the south taking the using that platform, Bollywood platform, and making those movies. You see that with Shah Rukh's movie recently. You see that with Ranveer's movie recently. So some of these movies where directors are coming from the south and making these pan-Indian movies. So these, but particularly these, what we call pan-Indian movies, there is, these are what S.V. Srinivas calls as mass movies, which are definitely, kind of become very popular these days. So now, last few years, maybe a decade, from 5 to 10 years, you definitely see the South Indian cinema is becoming more popular, or as popular as Bollywood. I don't know whether you should call them a competition as such, or whether they want to take that as a competition as such. But what I also see is a kind of working together. I mean, that is something that we can see also, where both the Bollywood and the South Indian. But I'm sure that is definitely affecting the other cinema. It also depends on the audience now. I mean, every cinema industry knows their audience. So, like for example, an Assamese or a Bengali or a or movies coming from certain certain smaller spaces definitely know their audience. So that definitely no, they are not competing with the Bollywood or these pan-Indian movies as far as I can see. But definitely, you see now there is a certain kind of pan-Indian movie, no, South Indian movies which are becoming pan-Indian movies, and that kind of then affecting a little bit, what Bollywood is producing.
Thank you, sir, for your reflections, and that is truly sad. I'm aware of RRR going for a nomination internationally on global platform, and we also have Bahubali that was a huge success. So that is speaking for my question. I was just prompted to ask this question out of my notice on this global platform as BAFTA and Oscars, who have been continuously, I think, daring to celebrate regional movies of India more in the regional languages than any Bollywood movie that I have so far noted to have won a nomination, as has RRR and recently the Manipuri movie Boong. So that was really the reason I just wanted to ask, because I was really curious to know why these movies could not find as massive an audience within India itself. So thank you so much again for your reflection.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ananya. Other more questions and comments?
I would like to, comment
Yes,
on what Augustus has said. Yeah. So, I mean, I deliberately wanted to not use the word parallel cinema, in a sense, instead of little cinema. I mean, parallel cinema, and if you look at, so I think it's still there, hopefully. So, I mean, if you look at this definition of parallel cinema, there's a kind of historical context to it, where when we say parallel cinema, it comes to this, no, you tend to understand that as an art house cinema as such. So I deliberately I want to show that this little cinema is not that art house cinema. This is a cinema which is tend to make movies something closer to what mass cinema is, but break away from certain norms of mass cinema. So I really doesn't want it to call it as a parallel cinema. That's the reason why. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Adarshan, sir. Sridhar, sir, would you like to comment? Tarakeshwar, sir.
Thank you, Samuel, for the suggestion of the film and also for the discussion. It was quite interesting. But I was slightly uncomfortable with the concept of little cinema. Yeah, that is one axis through which you can comprehend these kind of movies. One is because of the little budget, and then how different they are from the mass cinema. But I think this film is doing much more than that. It is not simply defining itself vis-a-vis the mass cinema. It is also commenting on the mass cinema, and it is actually defining mass cinema in a particular way. It's a kind of scoop on mass cinema. So it's neither providing an alternative nor trying to be different from the mass cinema, but it's a kind of a meta film in the sense that it talks about making of the film. Making of the film, not in the context of what we call as big budget mass cinemas, or instead of saying mass, if you're using little, that's a big cinema because there is a big funding behind it.
Yeah.
So here the technology has come in, and technology has made it possible for others to lay their hands on filmmaking. So when they laid their hands on filmmaking, what happens to it? So in that sense, the changes that have happened made this film possible. Number one,
Okay. Okay.
and number two, somebody mentioned about kind of naturalness,
Mm.
which is different from. I don't use the word naturalness, but the mode of representation is something different than the mass
Mm.
cinema. Uh, and then the second is it is comical too, but comical with a realistic touch. And this realism is
Yeah.
not the realism of, rightly as you said, it is not parallel cinema. That not the
Mm.
realism of the parallel cinema, but a kind of raw uh, realism, if I can use that term. So that raw
Yeah.
realism is coming in, not only in this film, but many of the films that have come in the last 15 years, uh, including the so-called mainstream cinemas, employ this kind of raw, realistic mode of presentation. So I don't know whether anybody has theorized in film studies about this mode of representation. Uh, and then the location from which these are emerging. I don't know where this film has emerged from, but it looks like it is Kolar. Predominantly, the location has markers to the Kannada signboards and things like that, but it
Yeah.
is made in
Yeah.
uh, Telugu. So, in that sense, the
Yeah.
location and the actors are also drawn from that area, if I am right. A certain kind of
Yes.
Telugu is
Yes.
also coming into the uh, this kind of movie, and there are precursors to it also, like this Kannada movie Titi, which was
Yeah.
entirely acted by the villagers themselves. Um, so here also there is a uh, imitation of that, looking for actors within the village. But I don't know how many of these people are completely quote unquote villagers, not just in the film, within the film, but in the larger film. But at least I know one or two people who are trained in theater uh, and also have good exposure to screen presence. Like that girl Uma, I think she was also
Yeah.
part of the singing competitions in the televisions, and so in that sense, so it is drawing from the Titi, that precursor, and there's something else is happening. Yes, of course, looking at the budget, we can call it as little cinema as opposed to big cinema. But there's something else that is happening that we need to probe further. And the axis of little cinema versus big cinema may not be sufficient to capture the changes that such cinema is bringing in. This is my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I mean, my use of little cinema is not to kind of. It is. For lack of maybe terms that I'm using the little cinema. As you said, no, this I'm not trying to use little cinema in a very honest. I'm trying. That's the reason why I'm trying to. Trying to show this cinema as something which is made with intelligence. I'm not saying that the cinema is something which is no, little in its contrast to mass cinema as such. Uh, but maybe if you look at the traditional, what I'm trying to look at some of the what we call as cinema or little cinema, is that maybe some of the technical abilities of these certain technicians or the actors might not be as no, mm, as we see with other cinema as such. But what we see is that passion, that intelligence is definitely there, and that's the reason why a lot of this little cinema have become very popular, have been hits that we see from last 30s. As I mentioned, like mass cinema, it has a similar success rates, in Telugu cinema, and also the actors, as you said, you are right. And I also tried to mention also that only the protagonist and one or two actors, some maybe some 3 to 4 actors who are the protagonist, and the others are part of have some kind of experience in in the field of media, but mostly what we see are from the other from the villages, in the part of the village. And I think the other say movies that I'm trying to mention also, Chinna cinemas also have that similar kind of like Tipti, people coming from actors from that part of the world mostly.
Another thing that I wanted to bring to your notice was somebody called it as a feel-good cinema. Why it
Yeah,
why it becomes a feel-good cinema? Because uh, the name of the village is Gollapalli,
Mhm.
but naturally different communities might have existed there, and
Yeah.
there's no tension between these communities. In fact, if you
Ah,
go to any village today, uh,
yeah.
the tension is so marked in
Mhm.
villages too. But this mm, presenting villages in a very coherent,
Mhm.
harmonious uh, coming together. Though there are little tensions between them, but they also come around in the name of movie, as if movie is a kind of uh, a tool which brings the uh, entire village together. Kind of idea is being mooted through the narrative. Uh, Recently, we also discussed on TFO another movie, which was also, I think, bilingual production. It was there in Telugu and Kannada. Uh, a electric lineman who tries to protect a egg laid by birds in the electric pole, and the entire village rallies around it. I'm not getting the name immediately. Uh, so there also, I think,
Lineman movie.
lineman. So they have a kind of a village which is very coherent, without much tensions, uh, and whatever the tension is there, that can be resolved easily. Uh, uh, that kind of representation, I don't know whether how should we look at it, because one dominant narrative that came earlier uh, with regard to villages is a certain kind of feudal uh, order that existed there, and then the community tensions that existed along with the feudal order there. But suddenly, then in the 90s, even in the mainstream, you start looking at uh, a certain kind of native desi glorification of the village order, and that seems to be continuing even in these new efforts too, which have come in recently. Um, that was, I think, we also need to look at the representation of the village itself in these new movies. Thank you.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, that is, I mean, that is something that I'm really, I honestly, I really want to touch on this, but obviously, Telugu cinema, particularly caste, is never openly discussed. No, very few cinema also they might have discussed, but it's always no top down no look at. But I completely agree with you. There is this definitely certain kind of uh, you know uh, tension-free kind of a society that you're looking when you're looking at this cinema. I didn't go there. I mean, uh, in a sense, purposefully, I didn't go there. I didn't want to go there. I just want to look at the technique of cinema, particularly with mass and the little cinema. There is a problem with Telugu cinema. I think I'm sure we all do agree with it. Know how these particular issues of divisions, with particularly in context to caste, is being portrayed and or not portrayed mostly, or completely absent in Indian cinema and Telugu cinema particularly, and or sometimes even even if it's mentioned certain ways, it is mentioned in context to class. So it is definitely there. So I think that is something that we need to also look into very, very closely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. This is Sagar. Okay, sir, thank you so much for the talk, sir. It was amazing as always. I just have two questions, sir. I'm just thinking aloud, sir. One is this whole this idea of little cinema and the big cinema. I think, or the mass cinema. I found that little cinema kind of upturns the mass cinema structurally. I mean, in a sense that. No, it escapes the circuits of distributors, producers, filmmakers, professional actors, and so on. So I found structurally it completely upturns the idea of mass cinema. But in terms of content, it seems to be one of negotiation, because if we see what the little cinema is about, at once it is trying to aspire to the mass cinema status. The meta film is aspiring to become a mass cinema, but the working class life of the people who are working on the film is making it impossible. So I found that negotiation really interesting. And the second question is this idea of little cinema. I think this is something that Tarak sir also kind of touched upon. Even in the beginning of the film, there is this binary of the town and the village, and he's talking about how the town is getting all these benefits and the village is not. And mass cinema is usually seen as town centered, so the town becomes like a metaphor or something for the mass cinema.
Yeah.
So and all the little cinema, and in all the little cinema, the village becomes a trope, a repetitive trope. For instance, even in this film called Superboys of Malegaon, which is very similar, the Bombay-based Bollywood almost becomes like a binary for the Malegaon-based local cinema. So, and even in there's this Tamil filmmaker called Manigandan who kind of makes something similar to little cinema with non-professional actors and so on. But for him also, the village is seen as an alternative to the city. So I just wanted to ask, is it a generalization to say that the village is becoming like a common trope in little cinema, or are there city-based kind of little instances of
I don't think so, because if you look at some other movies such as Aite, or on top of that, not able to few other movies. Even Care of Kanchalapalam is a suburb in Vizag. There are some movies, yes, maybe more percentage of movies coming little cinema can be considered, can be. But I don't think setting plays a very important role in that sense, like whether you have to come from village as such. But so I believe that that little cinema can come from any place. No, I don't think there's a kind of a general assumption or general aspect of looking at little cinema as something which is coming from a particular setting as such. I don't think that is the case, at least in Telugu cinema. I'm not very sure of Tamil or Kannada or other spaces, but at least in Telugu cinema, I think what I consider as little cinema, low budget films and cinema, which is I think setting doesn't really play a major, whether it is a village or a city or a suburb or whatever it is.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sagar.
Mhm.
Yeah. May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is regarding the interaction between the urban space and the rural space, either directly or indirectly in the film. So even when the film starts, we hear this conversation between the auto driver Veera and the passengers. Then there are other means through which we see this interaction between the rural and the urban space. Like some comments, the availability of water or electricity, which is quite regular in the city, that here the village lacks. And the recording, which is already there in the camera, the video recording. So I was trying to understand that those recordings, which we see from time to time, we the audience, and also in the film, Veera and Gana, they see these recordings, and also very few scenes where in the car they are moving, the lady with her husband, and they are discussing that how they lost their camera, and it was quite expensive and all that. So how do you see this relationship between the two spaces, urban space and the rural space in this film? I was just thinking, I didn't, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. I think there is a kind of, at least in the filmmaker's point of view, I think there is a kind of, no, uh, this certain kind of genuine representation that is there. No, they are not talking about, yes, in one sense they're talking about how, for example, the rains, when they are using the water and how they are using the water, and they are here, people are talking about rains or no rains. There is certain kind of problems that with with urban and rural that you actually see. But on the other hand, um, we also see the struggle that the girl has to go through to get the camera, to find it. It's not like no as we see in other, particularly in mass movies, how an educated girl is being portrayed, or how you can see you want to show these opposites of the urban and the rural, very kind of a staunch differences that they want to show. I don't think that is there in this movie. And while they were showing the struggles that they have to go through, that the educated girl have to go through, where she has to how to get a camera, to get that camera. Uh, so I think there is a certain kind of certain kind of genuineness, I believe, that is there. How they portrayed both urban characters and the rural characters. But certain spaces you can see how, for example, with water, with electricity, no, in some sense, no, you can see they're also showing the certain system, the fault of the system that the filmmaker believe. Uh, I see that in that way, how they're looking at urban but definitely there is this discussion about urban and rural setting. But I don't think there is complete kind of opposites of urban and rural, but at least no, no, in this context, in this movie in particular. Doesn't want. I don't think they have shown a complete opposite of what urban is. They don't care about camera, or that kind of thing. They were. I think in that sense, there's certain kind of genuineness that's there.
thank you very much for the answer.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Other more questions or comments?
Peter's comment is in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am, I'll just read it out. Sir has said the form of cinema, little cinema, may be about the aspects of budget or screencast or something else. Maybe the film is rich to address film or films on filmmaking.
Okay. Is it? I don't think it's a comment, right? Sneha?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
No, I meant to say that
Yeah.
the cataloging it as a little cinema is buying new, avoiding new problems only, avoiding existing
Mhm.
problems only. Instead, if you look at the cinema closely, it's a meta film, film on films. So in that sense, there are many such films came in the past. So in that sense, if you see it, it will talk about many aspects of film. Actually, the very production of film itself in the Telugu uh,
Yeah.
society,
Yes. Yes, sir.
how it become a business for even for a village, rural, remote village person, it's a business. So
Mm.
one has to see. For example, he did not find camera, but he found Chiranjeevi. Dates. How?
Mm.
What will he make out of it? So
Mm.
you replace it with camera with something else. And so then you will find the richness of this meta film. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking on that lines. Good.
Okay. Okay, okay. No, I'm looking at, I mean, as I mentioned in the tech, in my talk, no, I was looking at this cinema. No, I understand, completely understand this problem of calling it a little cinema, because but this is there in the Telugu cinema. This will always been there. People always been calling as Chinna cinema. So that's where it's coming from. It's not like I'm trying to come up with something new or trying to belittle cinema making or coming up with. I'm also talking about how the cinema is not little in its, trying to say that, little in its intelligence or whatever it is. So I'm trying to talk about how this particular cinema is there this kind of cinema, particular kind of cinema with the low budget or no 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 technicians who may not be as good as we see with other kinds of cinema, but who are trying to make no cinema no out of passion and no how they want to kind of break away from the mass cinema a structure. So that is something that I am trying to understand. Yes, this particular movie is about cinema within a cinema, but it's also a cinema which actually comes from that particular tradition, where you actually see people making, as I talked to you about. I think I've spoken about Masuda, Aite. We all these movies are about coming from this kind of a tradition where you have this low budget. No first time tradition technicians, first time actors, no trying to make some kind of cinema. I'm also talking about how they were popular, also how they become popular, and how they have the same kind of audience, not like a class audience where you have different kind of audience, where the audience are similar. So that's where my understanding of what little cinema is, as much as this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sridhar, sir. Are there more questions or comments?
No, just to continue the discussion, uh, these new cinemas that are coming up from quote unquote, uh, let's say first generation uh, technicians or producers vis-a-vis the uh, quote unquote the mafia that controls production and distribution in Telugu cinema. Uh, Interestingly, care of Kancherpalyam, um, and who takes it up for distribution. And then in this movie also, uh, it's a aborted attempt. The way the narrative goes uh, in the film, within the film. Uh, but that girl accidentally looks at the recordings in the broken uh, camera and then discovers it, and she magnanimously uh, tries to mend the broken ambition, and then the ambition gets uh, fulfilled because of our magnanimity. So in that sense, the relationship between the urban and the local, or uh, the main and the quote unquote the little, uh, is somehow harmoniously blended in this narrative. That is within the narrative. But interestingly, in Malayalam too, many of these new production initiatives are supported by the established actors like Fahad Fazil. They do support these new ventures. Uh, so similarly in Canada also I've heard Puneet tried to do, before he passed away, one or two such films. Uh, so at the distribution level or at the production level, there seems to be some kind of uh, relationship within the industry of taking note of these new ventures, and whether in terms of I don't know how to look at it. Maybe we need more data and then more critical analysis about it. Should we look at it as kind of appropriation, or is it in a kind of aspirational? Those who are trying to do these new ventures with little budget are also trying to aspire to be so. Because one of the well-known film in Kannada called Lucia uh, also was crowdfunded in the beginning. But later, when we interviewed him, he said, I would like to be a mainstream director. I don't want to remain the same kind of director. So, in that sense, it's the relationship is whether they are appropriating it or it is aspirational. I want them to appropriate me so that I can move up the ladder. And that kind of relationship, uh, I think that needs much more theorization. I think.
Yeah,
Thank you for.
yes, sir, that's true. Yes, sir, that is actually true. You're absolutely right. If you look at both all the directors who have come with this Chinna cinema, particularly in Telugu, have become no these big like Shekhar Kamala or no Chandrasekhar Yeleti, or no, have made what we consider as mass cinema right now. And obviously, I think, I mean, uh, no, I believe that there is no other, because they come here to the industry to make a movie. Then they make a movie, and they get trapped by it. Most probably, I think most of these directors, they try to make something. No, try to kind of break it. Certain directors try to, for example. Though I may not really agree with what Shekhar Kamala is making, but he tried little way, at least recent movies where he was trying to move away from it. But I don't think it's possible, unfortunately, for most of these directors. Some directors do, but most of these directors, very difficult for them. I think it is what we see with this director, Kandregula. What recently I've listened to one of his interviews. He was actually talking about how he's going to make a mass movie now. He himself said mass movie. He said he's going to make a mass movie next. So I think, as you said, I think we need to look this context, look at this more closely, and even for the movies like Aite, or no, Care of Kancharapalam, or even this particular movie. Rajan DK did it. No, this particular, and because it was Rajan DK, it went to Netflix. So they were talking about how they actually had to pursue. They literally said they were really stalking Rajan DK. They went to all these film festivals. They were going everywhere every time they want. So there is this aspirational aspect to it, definitely. But most of them do come with a certain kind of honesty. But it definitely kind of, once they are into it, their aspiration, they get trapped into a certain kind of image. Use Pandian's word.
I think your term is more an academic term, your usage of the term little cinema.
Yes.
I mean, you've conceptualized it in a certain way. a distinction that the industry itself may not hold on to in any hard and fast way. So Little Cinema, as Tarakeshwara was trying to say, could be a first attempt at making blockbuster cinema or big cinema. So it's more a kind of graduation, which also reflects on some of the changes that are happening in the industry. Earlier, people came through the ranks. You had to do your apprenticeship and work your way up to become a director. Some of these are rank outsiders to the industry, these directors. So the only way they can come into the industry is by making these kind of films, and they will wait for the next big break before which they will make the mass film. For the time being, there is a certain aesthetic, which they are embracing. As long as they are making these kind of films, which will work precisely because, as you said, precisely because it is not star-centric. So there is no expectation, with regard to how the film must be and so on. But it's not contradictory to what kind of film that, they will ultimately aspire to or go on to make. So it's not like parallel cinema that Alagarasan sir was mentioning, where there is a commitment to, there were the lines were very hardened with respect to commercial cinema and parallel cinema, that we will not make commercial films. I don't think it is so with respect to this Little Cinema as you have conceptualized it.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions or responses or comments? If there are no more questions or queries or comments, I think we are coming to a close of our discussion. I would like to thank Professor Samuel Moses for the wonderful talk and for leading such an engaging discussion. It was truly very enriching. Thank you so much, sir. And I would also like to thank...
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I would also like to thank everybody for joining us today. And further, I also thank my co-interns and especially Geeta ma'am and Nikhila ma'am for making this space and community so enriching. Until we meet again next Saturday, thank you everybody for joining, and thank you, sir. And good night. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. And Dr. Samuel, hope you will be able to join us for our discussions again.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you. Yeah. Good night. Good night.
Good night.